Trust is the foundation of successful teams, and the highest performing teams have the highest levels of trust. Hey leader, David Burkus here, organizational psychologist and author of 5 best-selling books on helping leaders and teams do their best work ever. And a big part of helping people do their best work ever in teams is how well those people trust each other. Trust is the core, if not one of the core, but I would say the core component of a successful team. But there's a lot of misconceptions about what trust is and how you build it on teams, right? Some people think it's, oh, we need to get to know each other, we need to do trust falls, we need to do these big outdoor expeditions, etc. And that's not what we're really talking about. Trust on a high-performing team manifests itself in 4 ways. 4 ways that unlock additional creativity and innovation in the team, 4 ways that help people actually execute on their tasks, and 4 ways that allow people to support each other. And in this episode, we're gonna unpack all of them and talk about the 4 ways trust manifests itself in high-performing teams and how you, as a leader or even an influential team member, can get started building each type of trust on your team. Let's get started. So the first component of trust in a high-performing team is that teams trust each other to deliver, right? Teams trust each other or can rely on each other to actually do what they say they're gonna do. And this one seems pretty obvious, right? Maybe you've been on one of those teams where people don't actually believe the commitments they hear from other team members, where people are struggling to even get deliverables from other team members so they can turn it in as part of their work product, etc. And this can be a huge cause of strife. Sometimes this is completely unintentional, right? Sometimes this lack of trust manifests itself because people don't actually know how their work fits into the other teams and the other people on the team's work, and so they don't know what they're supposed to be doing first in order to help the other team. So you're sitting there waiting on a deliverable and the other person has no idea you're waiting, right? That can happen some of the time. Other times, trust is broken because there truly is someone who's not delivering, who can't be trusted to deliver. In either case, the solution or the method of attack, at least in the beginning as a leader, is probably the same, which is that you need to be building clarity on the team. You need to be making sure that everybody knows what's expected of them, by when, what they can expect from others, and how it all fits together. My favorite way to do this, and if you're a regular part of the community, you probably already know this. If you're new, stay tuned. My favorite way to do this is to get the team together on a regular basis for what I call a huddle. A quick sync up happens maybe once a week, could be every day. You decide. I've never really seen a successful team go longer than 2 weeks in between huddles, but the idea is we get the team together for a quick meeting where everyone reports out on what did they complete between now and the last time we met, what are they focused on next, meaning between now and the next time we meet, what are they committing to doing, and what's blocking their progress. In other words, where do they need help? And the idea behind this is it's a status update for everyone, but in doing so, it's also an accountability mechanism. So it not only solves a lack of clarity problem, but it can solve the lack of trustworthy teammate. It's really difficult to be a social loafer on a team where you have to report out a huddle on a regular basis. And so if you do this on a regular basis, you're gonna see people are gonna notice how their work fits into each other, they're gonna know what to expect from each other, and they're gonna grow in the sense that they trust each other to deliver. The second component of trust in a high-performing team is that teams trust that they can share new ideas. In other words, they trust that this is a team that actually values out-of-the-box thinking instead of just saying, we want out-of-the-box thinking. And this concept goes hand in hand with a concept we explore a lot, especially in recent years, which is how much diversity becomes a strength on a team. We know, and there's a myriad of research that proves this, we know that teams that have different experiences, different past histories, different identities, different perspectives on the world see things differently, and as a result generate ideas differently. And that can lead to new and different ideas being shared on your team, but only if the team trusts that this is a place to share those ideas. Now, when you do so, you're gonna open the team up to this concept that there are multiple different possibilities and possible ideas, which is gonna make it more likely you're gonna find the right idea for whatever problem you're facing. How do you build this as a leader? Well, this really depends on your response when those new ideas come in. Are you modeling active listening, let's say? Are you really considering the idea? Or do you have a tendency to just shoot down the idea and say, hey, we don't have the budget for this. That'll never work. We tried something similar a couple years ago. Guess what? The world was very different a couple years ago, so maybe the idea worked. How you respond, the difference is between shooting the idea down quickly or giving the idea room to breathe and develop. You don't have to pick the idea. You don't even have to praise the idea. But you do have to hear the idea, because in doing so, you train the team that new ideas are welcome here. And over time, that grows the level of trust on the whole team to where everybody trusts that they are free to share those new ideas. The third component of trust in a high-performing team is that teams trust that they can disagree. And this goes right along with the prior one, right? Because when you have different ideas, perspectives, lots of new ideas, you're gonna have conflict. And believe it or not, conflict is ever present in high-performing teams. It's ever present in low-performing and dysfunctional teams too. The difference is what type of conflict it is. In a high-performing team, there is conflict over ideas. There is task-focused conflict, meaning as we're discussing what's the best possible idea to solve this problem, what's the best order we're gonna do these tasks in, as we're discussing all of that and making a plan of action as a team, we're gonna be in friction, and that's okay. Because respectfully disagreeing with someone and pushing back on their idea and having them defend it makes the idea stronger. But it's only on teams that trust that they can bring new ideas, but also teams that trust that they can disagree respectfully where you see this. And as a leader, again, this comes right back to you and how you respond. One of my favorite questions to ask leaders I'm working with directly around this concept is I'll ask them, when was the last time somebody on your team disagreed with you in front of the rest of the team? If it's been a while, we have a problem. If it's only been a week or two or a month, that's okay. Let's talk about how you handled it. But odds are what you tend to see on teams that do task-focused conflict well is you tend to see a leader who isn't threatened when people disagree with them. Now, when you do see a leader who's threatened by people who disagree with them, that's when you also tend to see people fighting over ideas and devolving into relational or person-based conflict where people are diminishing each other, not just pushing back on the ideas, and that's a problem. So as a leader, you set the tone for this and how you deal with people who disagree with you. And if you do that respectfully, again, just like before, just like the second component, you don't have to end up agreeing with them in the end, but you do have to help them feel heard. And if you do that, you're gonna build a whole team that trusts that they can disagree. The fourth and final component of trust in high-performing teams is that teams trust that they can make mistakes. Teams trust that they can admit failures. One of the easiest things to see in a dysfunctional team is how much people hide their failures. When you have a dysfunctional team, most of the time you have people who are afraid to show vulnerabilities, who are afraid to admit mistakes, because they know that's going to be taken advantage of them at some point. This could be in a big way, like in a really competitive hierarchical organization where you have to step over people to get ahead. You don't get a lot of people who are willing to admit mistakes. But this could also be little things. There's a lot of teams where people don't have enough trust to admit mistakes because other people on the team are making jokes at their expense. And it may seem innocent, it may seem in good fun, but jokes made at other people's expense are never funny, at least not to the people whose expense it's at. And over the long term, what they do is they diminish the trust on a team that you can admit mistakes, but you want a team that can admit mistakes. High-performing teams learn from failure faster than just about every other type of team, and that's how they became high-performing teams. As a leader, you build this trust to admit mistakes by admitting mistakes, right? By going first, by modeling vulnerability. And we're not talking about deep mistakes. You don't have to share your career-limiting moves. You don't have to go TMI, too much information into your personal life, etc. But as a leader, just saying, I don't know, from time to time, or just saying, you know what, that's my bad. I thought the market was gonna go this way. It turned out not to be the case. That's on me. Just taking that on yourself instead of looking for someone to blame and doing that in front of the team knows it's your fault anyway. You're not fooling them. But just doing that and admitting that shows that this is a safe place to admit mistakes and to talk about lessons from mistakes. And when people see you do that, they'll start to trust you more and the team more, and eventually they'll become a team where everybody trusts that they can admit their mistakes and learn from them. Now, these are the four primary ways trust manifests itself in high-performing teams. And I think you can automatically see what they all kind of have in common, which is that as a leader, you set the tone for this. Yes, there are gonna be kind of one-on-one relationships inside of a team, even with a toxic leader, where people trust each other one-on-one, but you almost never see a team that trusts each other without a leader who's willing to model trust in other people, and willing to be someone the team can trust. And so when you get started doing that, whether that's by calling what you're gonna deliver and then delivering it, whether that's by sharing new ideas and encouraging and listening to the new ideas you hear, even if you disagree with them, and especially whether that's by admitting your mistakes, wherever you start, get started. Because as you start to imbue people with a sense that they can trust you, they start to learn that behavior and they start to trust each other more as well. Trust is a cycle. It's a flywheel. It takes a while to get going, but it can become a virtuous cycle very quickly or a vicious cycle, depending on how you as a leader react. So react in a way that builds trust. React in a way that encourages the team to trust each other. React in a way where people feel like they can share their ideas. And react in a way that will help everyone on the team feel like they can do their best work ever. Oh, and one more thing. Okay, we talked a little bit about how to get started, 4 quick ideas for how to get started as a leader. But if you feel like this is an area you really need to develop and you need to build trust more on your team, you're gonna go further in this video. It's a deep dive on how to build trusting teams.